Welcome to Dread Alert. I'm Vince.
I'm Sarah.
And today we are talking about our top 5 found footage hidden gems. These films are largely unknown outside of the found footage superfans. Maybe your favorite found footage movie will be on our list. But before we jump in, be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more content like this, and let us know what your favorite found footage movie is in the comments below. Now, Sarah, found footage is not your favorite subgenre of horror.
It is not. I have over the years grown a bit more of a fondness for found footage films. One of my favorite found footage films is actually Hell House 3. Lake of Fire. I do enjoy the Hell House movies, but I feel like they are a little bit more mainstream, especially now, and wouldn't necessarily qualify them for this list.
No, I don't think they are deep cut enough for this list, but I do think we have some really interesting films to share with you all.
Let's kick it off.
Kicking it off at number 5 is Butterfly Kisses. Now, this film is an interesting film. It is a small film made with a small budget. But what I really like about it is the passion that the team showed when they were making it. The filmmaker actually appears in the film as a character in a sort of meta-narrative sort of way. And this is a multi-layered film.
It definitely is. And one of the things that I really loved about this film, so this documentary film crew is filming another filmmaker who found a found footage film of filmmakers doing a film about the Blink Man. It's very layered, and it is a very interesting concept with a very interesting monster in it.
Yeah, you have a set of film students who are making a movie about a monster, and then you have a filmmaker who hires a documentary crew to film him to preserve his own credibility. What really stands out to me about this movie is the nature of striving after success. If you're an artist of any kind, you'll relate to the main character in this film. It is almost heartbreaking to watch him throw everything he has, including his money and family and time, at becoming a successful filmmaker, to the point of hiring a crew to make sure his credibility is preserved.
It is a really interesting film, and I do think that the monster in it is so compelling and so interesting that it really holds your attention, and it goes throughout the film. We don't just see it in that found footage. This character comes through and is really fleshed out, and they do it in a very creative way by really making it seem like he is a credible monster.
Yeah, it feels like a real urban legend. They've done their homework and really given him a backstory and powers and all of the things that go along with an urban legend. I really felt like if I were to go to this railroad tunnel and look down and not blink, he might come and get me with his long eyelashes or whatever.
Yeah, the mythos surrounding this character is so interesting and so compelling, and the way that they handle this is so well done. I really found myself enjoying it, especially the second time around. I really found a fondness for this film.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen world building executed this well since the Blair Witch Project.
And it features a cameo from co-writer and co-director Eduardo Sanchez.
A face I am always happy to see whenever it pops up, wherever it pops up. The one thing I will say about this film, which keeps it lower on this list, the students have some unbalanced acting. Now, this doesn't hold the movie back from being successful in any way. I think it's still quite a successful film. But know going in that there are going to be some sequences where the acting isn't necessarily balanced. Moving on to number 4 on our list of found footage hidden gems, we have Devil's Pass, a film by Renny Harlin, and probably my favorite Renny Harlin outside of his contributions to the Nightmare universe. This film takes place in the Ural Mountains with a group of explorers looking to recreate the Dyatlov Pass incident and find out what happened to those hikers. The Dyatlov Pass incident is a real story and has a lot of mystery surrounding it, from conspiracy theories to aliens and everything in between. And the film capitalizes on that in a very compelling way. I feel for these characters. I feel for them because they're isolated in these mountains, and there are other threats besides just the monsters that they're running from.
You could really go down a YouTube rabbit hole if you really wanted to about this actual incident that occurred. I think that that is what makes this interesting, that isolation. They're on this mountain, and it's really hard. There's a lot of mental games that happen whenever you are isolated from everybody else.
Yeah, and injuries and other threats that aren't necessarily the monster you're running from. I won't spoil the ending for you, but I will say this is one of the most chaotic endings to a film on this list, or that I've seen recently.
At number 3, we have a new horror movie to add to this list, one that you just watched called Milk and Cereal. Now, I have not had a chance to watch this movie yet. It literally just came out about 13 days ago, so please sell me on this film.
This movie really surprised me. It sort of fell into my lap, and it surprised me not only in its release, but also in its execution. The filmmaking team that worked on this seemed like they were working with a low budget and doing this independently, and it was a sort of wear a bunch of different hats, all hands on deck filmmaking style. The girl who played Naomi was also the makeup artist, and the list of credits was very short. I have a lot of respect for that sort of toughness, and when a tight 62-minute film comes out of it, I'm really impressed. We have a film about a comedy duo making videos that are basically prank-centric, and I can tell you personally, those videos are not my cup of tea, so when I'm going to watch some bad stuff happen to some prank bros, you have my attention. It's told from competing viewpoints as well, in a really interesting narrative structure where we are given a sort of chunk of exposition, a prank that happens, and then we backtrack a few days to lead up to a competing viewpoint on how that all played out. There are themes of gaslighting, there are themes of narcissism, and one of our main characters may or may not be a serial killer. It's worth your 62 minutes. It's very fast-paced. It's very tight. Not a breath is wasted on this film. I know you love serial killers, and I know you dislike prank bros. So I think you'd have a really great time with this one, and I think you would have a great time with this too. Milk and Cereal. Definitely give it a chance.
At number 2 is a film that I really loved, Host. Now, this movie came out in 2020, and it is very much a product of its time. This takes place on a Zoom call. Basically, a group of friends are having a seance over Zoom, and some bad stuff really starts to happen to them. And this film, I think, executes some really interesting and good scares.
Yeah, and not only the few jump scares that are scattered throughout this film, and they're done very well. If you're not a jump scare fan, you might change your opinion on this film specifically. But the tension in this film has long stretches where they are amping up the suspense moment by moment with a nice resolve. I think it's a really well-crafted film outside of being another labor of love.
It definitely was a labor of love. The girls that starred in the movie were all friends in real life, which I think really helped. But they also did their own special effects. They also did some of their own stunts in certain cases. Because this happened during the year 2020, they literally did this in about 12 weeks. Yeah. So it was a very fast movie that they got together, and a lot of the dialogue, I believe, was even ad-libbed. So you could really see that this was a group of friends that were really working together and really making this sort of labor of love, and I think it really shows throughout the film.
This film used technology to the fullest and built scares not only around the technology, but around how scared we all were in 2020. And how isolated we all were in 2020. And that's the heart of this movie. Although it does supersede being a movie about 2020 and become a movie with a lot of heart. You almost feel voyeuristic watching these girls have this conversation on Zoom. And it's something that we all have grown accustomed to in a way as well.
Yeah, we are all still in these meetings all the time, sort of the Brady Bunch talking heads. So I think that we all still feel that isolation at certain points where we are on this call and we're like, is it ever going to end? And that, I think, really plays well during this movie and will allow it to not being a product of its time, but sort of supersede that.
Yeah, I think this movie is going to have longevity. As long as we have video conferencing, this movie will still pack in the scares. Now, for our last found footage movie, I've chosen one that is close to my heart and maybe close to the top of my list of found footage movies ever. The Last Exorcism. It plays with themes of faith and lack of faith. It plays with themes of faith healing as a metaphor for alternative forms of medical treatment and mental health treatment. And it really leaves a lot of ambiguity up until that last act on what's happening, which creates a sort of mystery that you're solving the entire time.
Yeah, this movie is really interesting. We have a lot of exorcism movies, but we don't really get exorcism movies as found footage films a lot. And so I think that that's what really makes this film sort of unique. I also think that we have a great anti hero as our
Mm.
protagonist. And I really like that because I want to continuously root for him, but also root against him.
He's very complex as a character, and you almost are on his side from the beginning, but you have some reservations about his moral approach to this. And I will say this movie is not a true found footage movie in the sense that it is a mockumentary that devolves into chaotic found footage. But what I think this movie does the best, and the reason it's been on my list since I saw it for the first time, is I think it has the best ending from a found footage movie ever.
Oh, wow.
Most found footage movies stop abruptly. There's no true end or resolution. I will tell you, this found footage movie foreshadows the ending very clearly and paints a picture of what is going to happen to these characters without you necessarily knowing that they're predicting the end of the film when it happens. But when the film is executed at the end, you think back to that and you're like, oh my goodness, I don't need them to find the tapes and to have a bumper at the end explaining what happened to these characters. I know diegetically from the film what happens to them.
That is really interesting and not something that I thought of because we do, in a lot of found footage movies, have sort of the same ending because that's the way that they all have to end, right? We don't have a little bumper to say, like, and this is the end of the movie, blah, blah, blah. So that is actually a really good point about this movie. And maybe upon a rewatch, I will definitely keep that one in mind.
Absolutely. That wraps up our top 5 found footage hidden gems. Was your favorite movie on our list? We hope. If it wasn't, let us know in the comments below. And until next time.
Stay spooky, my friends.